Well, happy St. Patrick's Day. Seems like someone over at FromSoft got Miyazaki way too drunk and he decided to patch a bunch of Elden Ring speedrun tech out of spite. FromSoft is known for not liking speedrunners and no-hit runners. So a patch that specifically targets a lot of stuff that speedrunners used. Not very surprising. It's a big trend among some AAA developers to specifically patch stuff out for PvE experiences that only really speedrunners are going to use, or stuff that people will use casually, but let them enjoy the game the way they want to, man. Just let them play. So let's go over the patch notes, and I'll explain why it doesn't really matter, and I don't really understand why developers do this. And also, I don't really understand why speedrunners in particular feed into this perception that it's a bad thing per se. So we got this tweet from Dist here. Rip Elden Ring speedruns, decreased Ash of War, Hoarfrost Stomp's damage, and increased cast time. That's the big one. Is they nerfed Royal Knight's Resolve and they nerfed Hoarfrost Stomp, which were the two things that we were using for the most part in the 80% speedrun. They made it so that Hoarfrost Stomp does less damage and increased cast time. It's actually terrible now. Royal Knight's Resolve was a Ash of War that you had on another weapon where you would use it and then it would buff all of your attacks for 8 seconds for 1.8 times damage. And we used that in conjunction with Hoarfrost to absolutely annihilate the end game. Surprisingly, it didn't do that much damage because the bosses in endgame are really overtuned, but compared to everything else in the game, it was really, really good. They also patched a couple other things like Gideon Skip and some small stuff like that. You can find the patch notes online and blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. I see a lot of speedrunners making a big deal of this, as if down patching isn't a thing that 70% of speedruns require anyways. Down patching, if you don't know, is where instead of playing on the current patch of the game, you download and play on a previous installment of the game. So let's say the game launches with a 1.0 version, but they update it several times throughout the course of the game's history. You might end up at a 1.9. The most obvious example of this is Minecraft. In Minecraft, everyone knows updates. They can be pretty big. They can change lots of stuff. So if you have a game that you're speedrunning that does get updates sometimes, what do you do? How do you make sure that you can speedrun the game? Because the issue is, if you run on current patch, if you run on the current patch, you run into an issue. What happens if the new update after the one you're currently on is faster than the one that you're on right now? Or it's not faster than the one you're on right now. What do you do? Well, basically, what you have to do is you either have to completely wipe the leaderboard for all of the runs that are done on old patch because you ban the use of an old patch altogether, or you have to allow people to play on old patch, right? You can't do either one. And obviously invalidating every speedrun for every previous to current patch isn't gonna fly. You need to be able to play the game. This is why in speedrunning, what we do normally is you take the launch patch and every patch after that. Left 4 Dead is a great example. We play on version 2.0.0.0, which is the first patch. This is the first patch that came out ever. What you do is when the game comes out, you save the patch. You can store all of your files and then back them up somewhere. what you can do is you can download through Steam legally through the back end the previous version files, or you can pirate them, or you can download them from some external source or whatever. Sometimes there's in-game ways to downpatch, so that's pretty rare. But this is the standard for speedrunning. And Left 4 Dead is a great example for this because there's this category called All Campaigns Legacy. This is what would be like 100% category for a lot of other games. You speedrun all of the campaigns. But here's the problem. 10 years after the game launched, like 6 years after this update 2091 came out, they released the Last Stand update, which made it so that all campaigns now had 14 campaigns instead of 13. And so what do? Do you get rid of all of the old all campaigns runs? Well, no. What we did is we made a new category called All Campaigns Solo, which would be on the current patch or newest with all 14 campaigns. And then we legacied All Campaigns Legacy. And these two runs are very different from each other, but you're still allowed to do both of them. All you have to do is download the old version and play on that version. And I don't know why people are so hesitant to downpatch. Mostly people who haven't been speedrunning for very long. I think it's because they think it's really difficult, but actually, all you do is replace the game files. You just have to install the game again, and it will work. That's it. In some instances, like in Resident Evil 4, it's actually even easier than that. You just replace the executable file. And this is a thing that probably 70 to 80% of all speedrunning communities do. And the communities that don't do this end up having to completely wipe and rewrite their leaderboards every time there's an update. And that is just not really acceptable for the longevity of a game because who knows? You know, maybe like 10 years later, like in Left 4 Dead, they update the game and all of the speedruns for the last 10 years would be completely invalid. And speedrunning in a context like that is not going to be something that anyone wants to do. So big game developers, I don't understand why you patch these things because it's not going to stop anyone from doing them. Like if you patch out single player specific tech that isn't gonna affect a casual playthrough, it's not going to stop anyone from doing it. The people who want to do it are just going to downpatch and do it anyways. And you are just wasting time and money on stuff that you could be spending more productive times on, like optimizing the game's frame rate and stuff like that. Now with Elden Ring, I see the excuse, well, they're trying to balance the PvP, but even in Souls games, you can't, like it's been known, you can balance the PvP separate from the PvE. So there really isn't any reason to change these things unless they were actually broken and not working the way that they wanted them to. But a lot of it does seem targeted specifically at speedrunners and stuff like that. And it's just like, well, you're wasting your time, dude. I wish the developers would understand this. We're just going to downpatch. Doesn't really matter. So just stop. We're probably not going to stop, but we're also not going to stop downpatching. And if you are concerned about, oh, like these speedruns are broken, like I just made a video about Elden Ring speedruns and I had all the glitches and stuff in it. That stuff's all still valid. You can still do that stuff whenever you want. You just have to downpatch. And most speedruns downpatch. So, nothing new there. I really wish that speedrunners would stop proliferating this whole like, oh no, the speedrun's dead now because, you know, we, the patch nerfs Hoarfrost Stomp. It's like, well, you know damn well that we're all just going to downpatch anyways, right? And I don't know, it spreads misinformation. Like lots of people are like, wow, the speedrun's dead now or whatever, which is bad for the speedrun. Because it's very obviously not.